What's going on, everybody? It's E Mackey, and today I'm going to do a tutorial on how to retouch skin. Basically, primarily how I retouch skin and how to edit a photo. So before we get into even retouching or editing skin, the first thing I want to talk about is the photo selection. So you want to make sure that you're selecting the best photos. So don't select the photo that you have to do a whole lot of editing to. And with that in mind, when you shoot, don't shoot anything and say, I'll fix it in post. Get it right in the shot, as right as possible. And the more you start to edit photos, the more that you can understand and know how much leverage and how much room you have to work in post. But do yourself a favor and just shoot well from the start so that you don't have to run yourself crazy in the editing process. So anyway, with that being said, I'm going to come here to my screen and I'm going to go to this pre-selected photo that I have. When you shoot your photography, when you do your work, you want to make sure that you shoot in RAW. And the reason why you want to shoot in RAW is because it gives you more latitude in the editing process. You can work a lot more efficiently. Just to let you know, I work off of a Mac. So this tutorial is going to be told from like the perspective of a Macintosh and not a PC. So I don't know the PC shortcut. So excuse me for that. So when you shoot in RAW, you're going to get this nice CR2 file. And when you double click on it, it's going to automatically open up Camera Raw. So the first thing you want to do in Camera Raw is just do some like kind of basic adjustments. So if you had exposure issues, you can adjust the exposure, which I'm actually pretty happy with my exposure right here at 0. If you had contrast issues, maybe you can adjust your contrast if you wanted to, if you needed to. But again, I'm super happy with where I started in this photo. I feel like I got the light levels pretty good. It's pretty much where I wanted to be. So I'll go ahead and open the image. When we hit open image, it's going to open up in Photoshop. Now this is Photoshop Creative Cloud 2019, but it shouldn't matter too much what version of Photoshop you use. And so the very first thing that you want to do or consider when you're working on editing your photo is what's the end use of this photo. So for the purposes of this particular photo and mostly the stuff that I do, I'm shooting for fun, is I'm posting on Instagram. And so Instagram has a white background. So the first thing I'm going to do is change the default background of my Photoshop to white. So I have my keyboard set up where I can right click. So I'll go here, I'll go to custom colors for the background, and my custom color is set to white. So I just set this to white because the background of Instagram is going to be white. And if I'm editing against a white background, it's going to help me see exactly where the tone of my photo is. Like, is it going to be too bright? Is it going to be too dark? When you edit against a dark background, your photos tend to be darker because the contrast between your photo and that dark background, your photo is going to look brighter. So when you put it on the white background, the contrast between your dark photo against the white background is going to make your photos look darker. So edit against the type of background your photo is going to be on. And mine is going to be on the white background on Instagram, so that's why we made it white. So that's the first thing. Now, the very first step when you want to edit any photo or do anything is you want to go ahead and duplicate the layer. Like, you don't want to do anything destructive. So by duplicating this layer, we're going to go Command J, and it will make a new layer right here. This layer is where we're going to do, like, you know, all of our stuff, or, you know, where we're going to actually work from. And we have a safety layer at the bottom where we started, right? This helps us to see the progress that we've made. And also it gives us like a step back to work. So the first thing in this edit that we're going to do at all is we're going to take care of like all the flaws in the skin. So we're going to get like these little strands of hair if we want to. We're going to get like the little bit of acne that she might have, like stray hairs as like right here, anything like that we want to take care of. We're going to take care of that now. So we want to look and see what type of imperfections we have. Like right here, she has a little bit of lint in her hair. So we'll get rid of that. This particular model has like pretty good skin, This particular day, I asked her not to wear any makeup or a little makeup. I think she might have like a little eye makeup, but that's cool. We're going to give her makeup in Photoshop. So first step that we're going to do is we're going to create a new layer right here, a new blank layer above our duplicated layer, right? And this is we're going to start working with our skin. The tool that we're going to use to do that is not the patch tool. We're going to use the healing brush tool, right? And we want to set the diameter of this healing brush tool to be whatever the diameter of whatever it is we're working on. So So right here, like let's say this piece of acne or this acne, I'm going to make it just a little bit bigger than the acne that I want to fix. Now, another thing too is since we are working on this new empty layer right here and not directly on this photo, what we're going to do is come up right here, and we're going to change the adjustment to current and below. So that way we know that we're editing layer 2 and layer 1. Basically, we're sampling from layer 2 and layer 1. Now, the way that this tool here works, this healing brush tool, is you're going to hold down Option. It's going to sample a part of her skin. And then when you click, it's going to like basically paint on that area of skin in the blemish area. So I'm just going to go through and first of all, just take care of all these areas that I feel like need to be fixed. Okay. And remember, in whatever area you're working in, you want to sample from an area close to that area and then fix it from there. So right here, she has some hair that's coming into her face. We don't want to see that hair there. We want to try to get this as close to perfect as we can. When we talk about like selecting the right photos, one thing that I probably would have eliminated this photo for was this patch of hair right here that I don't like, because I probably would spend too much time fighting with that to like try to make this look good. So I might have eliminated this whole photo just because I don't want to fight with that. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to leave it because primarily I want to show you how to clean up the skin. So now once we get the skin pretty much where we want to get it, and we get pretty much all the blemishes out. Okay, wait, here's a strand of hair right here that I don't want to see. So we'll go ahead and take this out. Okay, what we want to do is we want to scan the whole photo. So a lot of times what I notice in a lot of people's photo editing, particularly like people that aren't as advanced or experienced, is they only focus on the face. Well, anywhere you see skin needs to be touched. Anywhere you need skin. In addition to that, any place in the photo that has a mistake or a flaw in it, you want to fix those mistakes or flaws. So as I mentioned earlier, she actually has some lint in her hair right here, and we don't want to see that piece of lint. So what I would do in this situation, since it's so big, I don't want to sit here and fight with this brush, with this healing brush tool. So what I'll do is I'll grab the patch tool. I'll draw a circle around this area that I want to eliminate right here. And okay, I'm sorry. I need to be on layer 1, right? Oh, wait a minute. Yeah. So I need to be on layer 1 for this particular tool, right? Because I need to be on the actual layer that I'm going to be making an adjustment to here. So I'm just going to go ahead again to the patch tool. I'm going to draw a circle around this piece of lint right here. And I'm just going to move over to like another part of the shirt. This little area that you see right here is actually on layer 1 where I did that before. And I just want to get rid of that. So I'll go ahead and erase this. So while I have these 2 layers deactivated right here, I want to show you what we were doing to layer 2, our blank layer. It's just basically, this is all the spots where we had our skin right here, right? Where we fixed our skin. And when we turn this layer 1 back on, we can see that it's there. So we turn it off, on, off, on. So we can see where we started to where we are now, right? Okay, so now that we have our skin pretty much where we need it to be in terms of, you know, getting rid of our pimples and everything, I'll turn off this layer, turn it back on so you can see where we were and where we are right now. We got like this piece of hair right here and like this blemish in our skin out, as you can see. So now that we have that where we want it to be, what we're going to do is select our bottom layer and our new skin layer right here. And we're just going to hit Command E. And what that's going to do is merge these 2 layers together. Now that we have these 2 layers merged together, we need to duplicate this layer again, because you want to always have a copy of what you did before, just in case you mess up. So what we're going to do is just hit Command J. And now we have a duplicated layer right here, right? Now, for the sake of what we're going to do right now, this next step in the process is going to be called frequency separation. And basically what we're going to do is separate the high frequency and the low frequency so we can work on both individually. The high frequency is going to be basically everything like texture, like her skin texture itself. The low frequency is going to be tones, like her skin tones and shades. So what we need to do is create two new layers, so that we can do that frequency separation. So remember, background layer is our original layer. Layer 2 is now the layer that we've fixed our skin. Layer 2 copy is going to be our low. So we'll go ahead and rename this, let's say skin tone. We'll name this one skin texture, right? So that way we know which frequency we're going to be on right here, right? Okay, so now that we have the two layers for our frequency separation, skin tone and skin texture, the first step that we're going to do right now is we're going to start working with our skin tone layer. And what we're going to do is just go ahead and click on that layer. We're going to turn off the skin texture layer so that we can see the skin tone. Realize that skin texture is a layer above skin tone, and that's very important. So skin tone layer is selected right now. We're going to go up to filter. We're going to go to blur, and then we're going to go down to Gaussian blur, right? This Gaussian blur, we want it to just be enough to where we can't see the texture in the skin, right? So I'll go ahead and I'll take this radius of the Gaussian blur down to 0.01, and here in the viewer, I'll just find the area of the skin. I'm just going to look at this viewer until I can't see the texture of her skin anymore. I don't want to blur it out too much, but just enough to not be able to see the texture of her skin, right? And so like right there, I think I'm pretty good. So all we want to do again is just get this Gaussian blur to the point that I can't see the texture of her skin. For me, in this particular photo is 9.3, but don't worry about that 9.3. It's going to be something totally different for every photo. So all you want to do is make sure that you just barely can't see the texture of her skin. So I'm going to dial down from 9.3 as a matter of fact. I'll probably go to about here, which is 7.8. Okay. Yeah. Alrighty. So now that I have my skin tone layer where I want it to be with the Gaussian blur, the next thing to look at is going to be our skin texture layer. I'm going to go ahead and turn that skin texture layer back on, and we'll select the skin texture layer. Make sure that you're selecting the skin texture layer. Once you have it selected, go up to image, come down to apply image, select apply image, change this layer right here to skin tone, because we're going to subtract this layer from the skin tone, correct? All right. So change this layer to skin tone. Channel RGB is correct. And our blending mode is going to be subtract. So when we come down to subtract, now we see this, right? So when we have this skin tone layer selected, we have the blending mode set to subtract. The opacity will be 100%, the scale will be 2%, and the offset will be 128%. Make sure that you have skin tone selected, or whatever this layer is that you have named for your skin tone. Channel RGB, blending mode subtract, opacity 100, scale 2, offset 128, hit OK. All right. Now the next thing that you want to do is you want to come up here to where, since you have skin texture selected, you want to come here. And then you want to select linear light. Now, when you select linear light right here, what you'll get, since the skin texture layer is being subtracted from the skin tone layer, now what you're seeing is actually what we started with. So if we select both these layers and then we hit Command G, it'll group those two layers together. So when we turn this group off and on, you should see no difference between the layer that's below it and what's in this group, because basically all we've done was separate the frequencies, the high frequency from the low frequency. So now when we put those two frequencies together, we have the original image that we started with. Now that we have that how we need it to be, what we'll do from this point is we'll click on the skin tone layer and then create a new layer right here. So a new blank layer. Now this new blank layer is very important because what we're going to do right here is start adjusting the tones of the skin. And the way that you do this is by basically airbrushing. So what we're going to do is go here and we're going to select a paintbrush, right? We're going to come up to where we have the opacity. I like to have my opacity around like 35% and the flow around like 35%. It doesn't have to be like an exact number, but you don't want it to be 100% because then you're like painting on the people, right? As far as the brush, you want to come here and we want to have a relatively soft brush, right? Not one of these hard edge brushes. We're going to have a soft brush. So I'm selecting this soft brush and I'm going to make the diameter of this brush just a little bit smaller or around the size of whatever I'm painting, right? So the same way that we did with this healing tool right here when we were doing the healing brush tool, we're going to select the area that we're going to be painting, right? So I usually start with my highlight. So I'll come anywhere where I see light and I'll start to kind of paint over those areas, right? Now make sure that you are selecting from areas like the light or the color from like the areas that you're painting, because you don't want the skin to be like all types of weird colors, right? So for example, this selection right here corresponds to the type of light and the tone that's right here on her brow. It is totally wrong for right here on her face, as you can see. So you just want to try to keep that color the same. Typically with highlights though, you can kind of get away with being a little bit brighter because it's the highlight. But basically, let's just go ahead and paint over anywhere we see like a little bit of highlight. So I'll go ahead and get that done for you right now, right? So now once you have that layer pretty much where you want it, I'll turn it off and on. That's my highlight layer right there. So now what I want to do is when I turn this off and on, I'm seeing when I turn this off and on that this circle around this is pretty hard, right? It's not that smooth. So what I want to do is while I have this highlight layer, and I should have named this highlights. What I want to do now is I want to go up to filter, hit Gaussian blur. Well, not Gaussian blur from right there, but filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And now I want to adjust this radius until it's like where I feel like that paint job is kind of smooth. So right there, that looks pretty smooth. So before it was kind of harsh, right? But now we have a nice smooth blending of that highlight layer, right? Now I want to go ahead and I want to make a new layer that's going to be beneath the highlight layer, but above the skin tone layer. And I'm just going to name this one skin, because this is where I'm going to brush in her skin tone. So now this is where I'm looking at, okay, in this particular thing right now, what I see right now, she has this discoloration under her eyes right here. And we don't want that. We want to try to take care of that. We want to make this look smooth. So what we're going to do now is get rid of that. But we don't want to select this tone of skin because that's what we're getting rid of. So we'll select like this tone right here, make this brush just slightly bigger. And then we'll just kind of start brushing over that right there, right? Until we can pretty much get rid of that discoloration underneath her eyes, right? So as you do this more and more, you'll start to understand the shape of the face, where the cheekbones are, where light hits those cheekbones and everything else. And then you'll know kind of how better to craft the face, right? So I've been doing it for a while, so I kind of know where the light should be hitting and how it should be and all that stuff, but you'll get it as you come along. But now that I have that skin tone layer pretty much where I want it to be, I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the highlight layer. And I'm just going to go up here. I'm going to have the skin tone layer selected. I'm going to come up here to filter, blur, then Gaussian blur. And I'm just going to adjust this radius until it looks nice and smooth, or how I want it to be. So I think that radius right there looks good. So I'm just going to go down some more so you can see, right? So now if I increase it, it just smoothens out that paint job. It doesn't make the paint look so painted, you know, or so cartoony. You don't want to look cartoony. Like, that's just not a good look. We don't want our photo to look like that, right? So at any rate, I have it pretty much where I want it to be right here at this radius. So I'm going to hit OK. And now if I turn this layer off and on, I can see where we were and where we are now. All right. So this is where we were. This is where we are now. Like way more gooder, right? Way more gooder. Okay. So now that we have that done, what I like to do is I'll do one more pass over it. So I'll create one more layer and I'll name this, let's say Thin Touch. And this is just in case I missed something somewhere, right? So as I'm looking at this, I'm seeing like the base of her nose, like I don't quite like it that much. You know what I mean? So I'll just kind of go through this and I'll fix that stuff up, right? So now, if we turn our group off and on, we'll see where we started, where we are now, where we started, where we are now. Now, this right here is real important. When you look at your highlight layer, you look at your finishing touches layer, or you look at your skin tone layer, if any one of these look too cartoony or think it's too strong, all you have to do is just adjust the opacity like right here to get it where you want it. I personally like where everything is on mine, so I'm not going to do anything with them. I'm just going to leave them right there where they are. Now this next step is I'm going to merge all these painted layers, and then I'm going to erase that paint from where I don't want it to be. So in that process of using the Gaussian blur, what we did was basically spread out that paint so that all that paint went evenly, right? But in the process of doing it, if I blow up right here, you can see we got some of that paint like right there over her hair. And like right here on the side of her face. And we got some on her lip that you probably can't tell right now. We got some like over her eye. And we don't want that paint job to be in any place that we don't want it to be. So what we're going to do is merge together all these painted layers by selecting all of them, then hitting Command E. So now we can turn them all off and on at the same time. And then what we're going to do is come and grab an eraser. We're going to change the eraser type to a soft eraser, like such right here. And then we're going to keep our opacity and flow at 100%. So right now we're just going to make this eraser just slightly smaller than what we want to erase. And then what we're going to do is go around the outline of everywhere that we painted her skin, right? So for example, I'll start right here at the base, or right here, her chin, where her chin meets her neck. I'm going to hold down, I'm going to click in this area. Then I'm going to hold down Shift. And then if I hold down Shift and click to another area, it's going to basically erase in a straight line. So I'll just keep my finger on Shift as I erase the outline of everywhere where I don't want that paint to be. So what I'm going to do, just for the sake of being able to illustrate what I'm talking about, is create a new layer, and I'm going to paint that layer white. You don't have to do this until the end. I advise you to do this so you can see that you didn't miss any place, but I'm going to make a new layer that's underneath my painted layer. I'm going to put this white paint brush, well, let me turn off the skin texture layer, so all we're looking at is the paint. And so now you can see where I erased, right? This is her hair right here. So if I turn off this layer, you can see that that's her hair right there, right? So what I don't want to do is have paint over her hair. So at any rate, I'm going to go back to my painted layer right there and just continue to erase around. So I'll fast forward through this part so you can see at the end. Okay, now that I have pretty much everything erased around the edges of where I don't want the paint to be, what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to turn on that white layer that's behind the paint so that I can see where I have erased. Now, if your thing looks kind of weird like this, like a sketch, the reason for that is because we have the skin texture layer still turned on. So let's just turn the skin texture layer off. So now we're looking at is our paint. So now, as you can see, I've erased, this is the edge of her lips right here, but we still have paint on the inside. We don't want that paint. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and change my brush to a hard brush. And I'm just gonna erase everything that's inside of this line, because I know everything inside of this is her lips and not her skin. And we don't want any part of her lips or mouth painted brown or painted the color of her skin, right? I see that the outside of this is where her hair would be, right? So let me erase this. Now, sometimes you'll forget what's what, because I know that she had a piece of her hair coming down right here. So since I don't remember what that is, I can turn this white layer off and I can see, okay, well, this whole thing right here is one dreadlock. So I can just erase that. I'm sorry, turn off the white layer. And remember, the reason why this looks blurry now is because we have the skin texture layer turned off. And all we're looking at is the skin tone layer. That's why that looks blurry. Don't sweat that too much. Go ahead and turn your white layer back on and just erase everywhere where we don't want to have. And I'll fast forward through this so that you don't have to like sit through it. Okay, so now that we have that erased and done exactly how we want it to look, I'll go ahead and turn this layer off and on. So we see like a big difference right here, right? Now, another thing that I would normally do is like around her nose, I would just go over that just a touch like erase over that just a touch, like a really light erase. So I'll change my opacity of the eraser down to about like 20% around that. I'll change the flow to about 20%. Again, these numbers are like just relative to whatever. I just want to be kind of soft. Oh, I just did it on the brush. I want to do it on the eraser. So with a soft eraser, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, no, that was the eraser. Okay. So now I'm just going to lightly hit like right around that area. So we do have some definition around her nose. But so off and on, this is where we are now, right? So now that we have that there, her skin looks pretty good, right? It looks pretty clean. If I feel like it's too strong, I can go ahead and take that opacity down just a touch. And the fill down just a touch if I wanted to. I think I like it right there. I think it's cool right there. Okay, now that I have this roughly where I want, I can see where I was before, where I am now, where I was before, where I am now. But now that I can see that I have this pretty much where I want it to be, what I can do at this point is I can combine everything in that group. I can merge that group. So I'll go ahead and select that group layer, that whole group, and I'll just hit Command E. And now I have one layer that's everything that I just did, right? So this is where we were. This is where we are now. Where we were, where we are now. And now what I'm going to do is like really start getting into like the tones and like the feeling of my photo, right? So what I like to do from this point is I will duplicate that new layer. And once that new layer is duplicated, what I'm going to do then is come here to this blend mode and I'm going to change that to multiply. And when I change that to multiply, it makes my image look kind of darker. Now, this is how I edit my photos. This is why my photos have kind of like this darker type of look. And you don't have to do it like this, but this is what I do. And so from there, what I do is I take my opacity down a little bit until I have it pretty much like where I want it to be. Take the fill down just a little bit till I have it pretty much where I want to be. And this just kind of gives that photo like more depth and like more emotion. I'm going to take those down just a touch. And now what I'm going to do once I have it roughly where I want it to be is I'm going to come down here. And basically what this is right here is going to add a vector mask. And what the vector mask is going to do is give me the ability to like dodge and burn the areas where I don't want my image to be too dark. So the way that this works is once I do that, you're going to get this little white vector mask right there. And I'm going to go to my paintbrush. I'm going to change my paintbrush. Well, since I already have it, the opacity and everything should be pretty much where I want it from when I was painting the skin. But I'm going to make that paintbrush black. Now, everywhere that I paint black on this photo, on this layer, is going to start bringing this image back to where it was before I added the multiply layer, correct? So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna start with like making this brush kind of big. And usually I start with like the bigger things, right? So I just want to kind of brighten up her face in these areas right here where I see the light hitting. I want to kind of bring back a little bit of the brightness in her hair so I can see kind of more of the detail in her hair. Maybe right here. I don't really want to touch her shirt because I like the darkness of her shirt. Maybe come back to her skin right here because I noticed when we multiplied it, we made it look kind of unhealthy. That's maybe because we should have painted more on her skin, but cool. And if you look over here to the side, you'll see these parts that's going black. And now show us everywhere we painted. So if we turn this multiply layer off and on, we can see where we were, where we are, where we were, where we are. And the thing about this multiply layer is you can duplicate this if you want. So I'm seeing this and I'm kind of liking this, but I think I want to kind of make it a little bit darker. So I can make it darker by either taking up the opacity and the fill here, or what I normally do is I just duplicate the layer again. So when I duplicate the layer again, I'm going to see that now this photo is selected. I don't want the photo to be selected. I want this vector mask to be selected. So I'll click on that, or this layer mask to be selected. So I'll click on that. You'll see the box go around that. So now, again, I just repeat the process of like just painting over what I don't want to be too dark, right? Now that I have that pretty much where I want it to be, what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to select all these groups or select all these layers and then group those together. So make sure when you select the groups that you select the bottom layer right here as well. And then you just merge those together. So now where we are, where we were, where we are, where we were. And if we turn this off, we can see where we are, where we started originally, where we are now, right? So now from here, the rest of this is just pretty much on you on how you want to style this up and do whatever. So what I typically do from this point is I go to my adjustments panel right here and I start to adjust selective color. So at selective color, what it's going to do is it's going to select the channels of color and then basically allow you to edit on those channels, right? So this is the red. So if I take it more towards cyan, it's going to make my image more red. If I take it more away, it's going to make it like less red, right? So I just want to make her look kind of healthy. So we'll kind of go, well, actually, I don't want to mess with my cyans at all. Actually, let's see. See a magenta. I'll slide that over a little bit there because I like that. See yellows. I kind of like it right there, right? Now, if there were more colors in this image, you could do a little bit more. You can see it better, but I do see some greens in the background. So I'll see what we can do with these greens, right? So I'll start up here at cyan and just kind of move this wheel. And you can see the changes in the greens as I move it. I like that green right here. So I like it there. Let's see what's going on with magenta, how it's affecting my greens. I move it here in the background. The yellow. Okay, that's cool right there. I'm happy with that. So I'll go back to my layers panel and I can see that selective color layer. So if I turn it off and on, you can see the difference that it made to my image right there, right? So now if there were areas that I didn't want it to touch, this is like a vector mask layer. So if I paint over this black anywhere, it will change, you know, the colors or whatever back to where it was before I put this on. So that's how that works. I'm happy with that. Now, the last thing that I want to do, I'm going to merge those two layers together. I'm going to duplicate this layer so that I don't mess up my layer if I don't want to. Okay, so now that we have our photo pretty much where we want it in terms of like the tones and like the multiplied layer and all that type of stuff and like just everything looking the way that we want it to look, one of the last things that we want to do is to sharpen this image up just a touch. Just give it a little bit more sharpness to just make it look pretty crisp. And so the way that we're going to do that is by going here and we are going to duplicate this layer, this last layer that we had. Okay, so once we have that layer duplicated, what we can do from that point is just go up to filter, convert for smart filters, hit OK, because it's okay. Now, once we've converted to a smart filter, once we made that layer a smart layer, basically, we're going to go up to filter, then other, then we're going to set that layer to high pass. Now, once that layer is at high pass, what we want to do is we want to adjust this radius until we barely see detail. And as you can see right here, we're starting to see like the detail of her eyes and her mouth and like around her shirt and everything. Like the more detail you see right here, the more sharp it's going to be. So you don't want to do too much, because then your image is going to be like super stupid, dumb sharp, and that's no good. So we're going to go ahead and hit OK right there. Then we're going to change this blend mode here to overlay. Now, once that blend mode is at overlay, now we have our image sharp, right? So you see she's nice and sharp. We can turn this off and on, and you see the difference in the sharpness, right? Now, I like where everything is for the most part in terms of sharpness, like, because I know I'm just gonna put this on Instagram, but let's say that there were areas in this photo that I did not want to be that sharp. What I would do from there is I come to right here and I'd make this, I create this vector mask. And in that way, once I created the vector mask, what I can do is paint over the areas that I don't want to be so sharp with black. And what that's going to do is take away that sharpness, the same way that we've been using the vector mask and painting it black and kind of like dodging and burning before. This is how we're going to take away the sharpness. So, for example, let's say that on her cheeks right here, I didn't want it to be as sharp. I just paint over this area, and it'll take away the sharpness right there in her cheeks. But I kind of did want mine to be sharp like that, so I'm going to leave it like that. All right, so now we have this as sharp as we want. We have this photo pretty much where we want it to be. You can stop right here, or you can push a little bit further if you would like. I usually add this LUT onto photos that I know I'm going to upload to Instagram so that my photos can kind of have kind of the same feel to them. But the way that you're going to do is come here to add new fill or adjustment layer, which is like this half circle, half and half thing. Click on that, and then you're going to go to color lookup. Because remember, LUT just stands for lookup table. Once this menu here pops up, we're going to go to load 3D LUT, and we're going to click on this drop down menu, and then you just choose whatever LUT it is that you like, you know, and then adjust the LUT as needed. I know that typically I use Foggy Night. So I'm going to use Foggy Night. That's what it looks like once it's added. But then what I do here is I can just kind of take down the opacity to where I want it to be, right? Take down the fill and opacity to where I want it to be. I can see it off and on here. I like it, like right there, right? And so also another thing that I can do, and if you see right here, this is an adjustment layer to where I can make adjustments to this by painting black where I don't want this LUT to show up, or painting white where I want it to come back, right? But I don't typically do that because I want this LUT to be over the whole image. So this is where we are now, where we were, where we are now. So I'm going to make one more group of this. So by selecting everything that I've just worked on, Command G to put it in one group. And as you can see right here in the bottom, I have these two layers right here turned off. These are like everything that I worked on the way, but this is our original layer. So now that I can compare our final to where we started. So this is where we are now, our edited photo, and this is where we started. This is where we are. This is where we started. As you can see, editing the photo makes a huge difference. This is where we are. Now, when it comes to saving, like I said, I shot this in RAW. I don't remember, I did this shoot about 4 years ago. So I don't remember what camera I had, but I'm thinking it was a 5D Mark II. I don't have that camera now, but at any rate, since I shot this in RAW, the 5D Mark II, this photo is pretty large. So if I want to save this photo, what I'm going to do is go to Image, Image Size, and I'm going to change this image size. I'm going to go right here from pixels to inches. The width is 12 inches by 19. That's a huge file. That's massive. I don't want it that big. I'm going to change my width to 6 inches. The height will be 9 inches. If you see, this lock is on right here, so it keeps the proportions the same. So now that photo is a 6:9. Now I can save this photo. I'll just save it on my desktop. And voila, that's it. So this tutorial was a little bit long. This is not as long for you as it is for me because I'm going to make this thing short for you, but I know it was long. But this is typically my workflow of how I edit skin, how I retouch skin, and how I edit a photo, and how I color my photos and everything like that. You can use this as kind of a guide and like just kind of go through and like let it play as you edit the photo until you learn it. And then once you learn it, you can kind of add your own ways or like own tips and tricks or whatever it is like that. If you like this video, go ahead and give me a like. If you feel like somebody else can benefit from this video, go ahead and give me a share. If you have anything to comment to this video, if you appreciate it, leave something in the comment. Let me know what part you might have been struggling with previously and if I helped you at all. And if you have anything that you see in this tutorial where I could have been working more efficiently or effectively, is something that you could teach me, drop in the comments too, because I'm self-taught and I don't know everything. So if you could teach me something, teach it to me, because I learned a lot of my stuff from tutorials as well. Don't forget to go to my Instagram, follow me on Instagram at @eMackeyCreates, and that's where you can see all of my creative stuff, not all, but a lot of my creative stuff and like some behind the scenes, and just kind of get to know me personally. I can get to know you. If you got a dope page, I'll follow you back. But thanks for your time. Thanks for checking me out. Leave in the comments as well anything else that you might want to learn that I could possibly help you out with. Thanks again. It's eMackey.